while I set up. Mhm. Okay. Larry's, Christiana, should we wait a few more minutes for more people to join, or should we begin right away?
I think we're good to go. I mean, it's going to be recorded. It'll be available online.
Okay, sounds good. I don't think we met quorum for today's meeting, but I'll take a note for attendance. Adeline and Larry's. Okay. This is our final meeting of the entire year. Just to do a quick recap, we had a Yankee scholarship award passed out. We wrote a bunch of letter of supports, including one for the Department of Transportation's a bill to make the transportation contracts stronger for the scenario where they change vendors so that the employees could find jobs easier and maintain their work. We also wrote a letter of support for Senate Bill S6807, which tries to put mental health officials in schools. And that one was particularly important to me because I think it was very necessary. We also passed a letter of support to Libido USA to promote stickball, Dominican stickball. Those are the three that come to mind. Hopefully next year we could do even more. But before we get started with our meeting, I'm excited to hear these two presentations. I'll read our community guidelines real quick. So here it goes. Good evening, everyone. I am Mohammed Bayo, Chair of the Committee Board 7's Youth Education and Libraries Department. I will facilitate today's webinar. It's my first webinar ever, so bear with me. The topics are on the agenda. We have two presentations and then maybe a couple announcements, and then that should be the meeting. Um, Before we begin, I'll go over the community guidelines. Everyone besides the speaker will be muted throughout the webinar. After each presentation, I'll ask if people have questions. By people, I mean like four of us. Um, and then only those recognized by the facilitator, me, will be allowed to speak. But I'm happy to let anybody speak. We will stay on topic with the agenda items. And yep, we should begin our meeting. The first presenter will be um, Justin Paulino. Um, are you giving a presentation on behalf of Literacy Academic Collective? You may take the floor.
So, hi everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm here with Naomi, and yeah, so Naomi's gonna be presenting, but I'm just here to sort of support. But yeah, I don't know if it was listed as two different presentations or there's somebody else, but yeah, that's the plan.
Sorry about that, Naomi. Sorry for the confusion.
That's okay.
It's all good. Hi everyone. My name is Naomi Pena. Can I share my screen so I can show my presentation? Or,
Yes, please.
or I just made a request. Um, thank you so much. Um, hold on. It's 6:30 and my brain is melting. Give me 1 second.
No worries.
What is going on? You can now share this. Well, I don't know what's going on. Hold on, let me do this again.
Webinars are very tough.
Yeah,
Good for
it's
the
not letting me share tabs. Wait, for some reason, it's not letting me share my screen,
okay.
and I don't know why.
Um, Christiana, are you able to give her permission to share her screen, Naomi?
Yes, I granted it. It should have. Let me try to make you co-host. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, because it's saying something like I'm getting a bunch of like exclamation points, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the
I
way.
just made you co-host. Can you try now?
Yeah, let me see. It's not working. How about we do something different? Can you possibly have Justin, can you try to share the presentation?
Yep, I'll share it. It's gonna be as like a PDF style, but if that's okay. But
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna share it right now.
Yeah. This is why we always have more than one person on the call, just in case. Well, while that's happening, let me introduce myself. My name is Naomi Pena. I am one of the co-founders of Literacy Academy Collective. Literacy Academy Collective is a school support organization, much like Urban Assembly or Eagle Academy, where we partnered with New York City Public Schools to design a school model. Um, I would like to first start with the why of how I got here. Um, Justin, are you able to share or no?
Yes, I'm about to share right now.
Okay, okay. Sounds good. Um, so my presentation is to talk about the organization, awareness about literacy and the work that we're doing. Um, but the way we got to my why, I think it's what grounds this whole work. So I am a mom of four. My oldest is 26. I have a 20-year-old and I have 16-year-old twins. And I'm born and raised in New York City. I'm actually from the Lower East Side. I'm even more fortunate that I can raise my kids in the Lower East Side. Their father is from the Bronx, South Bronx particularly. And when my first son started school, um, we started getting complaints. I was told that he was distractible, that he was avoiding his work. And as a result, he started getting in trouble at school, which then meant he was getting in trouble at home. And I vividly remember that slides were sent. Okay. I vividly remember me trying to um, find out what was going on. And he looked at me one day, was like, Mom, I don't know what it is. It's like my brain is not letting me. And I took that as a cue that he needed help in his 6-year-old self. So I did that. So I got him evaluated, and it turned out that my son has dyslexia. And I did not know what that meant. Um, I thought, I just needed to figure out the solution to this thing and make it work. And what ended up happening is my son needed a very specific reading approach. And I did my research because, we do what we all do. We go to Google. And what I discovered is that there's this approach called the Orthan Gillingham. And if you use it, not only does it help all students, but it actually helps specifically dyslexic students. So I decided, well, why not? Let me try to do this and advocate for my child. So I went ahead and I went to my school principal and oh, there you go. Perfect. And those are my four kids. Um, and I tried to, Kay was like, he needs Ortho Gillingham. Let's do this. And she was like, well, no, we don't have that. No one is trained in that. But go get an IEP. We'll do some pull-out services here. We'll do some pull-out services over there, OT, sets, all this other stuff. And I promise you it work. And I was being told, some kids need longer time to learn how to read. They'll eventually catch up. That was kid number one, in the back left corner. Then I had kid number two in the back right corner. And then the two twins are next to me, parallel to me in the side. I'm in the middle. I know I look like I'm one of the kids, but I'm not. Um, and with each kid, I was seeing the same thing. And every time I was sounding the alarm, I was told that I needed to calm down and that they'll eventually learn how to read and that it was fine. For kid number two, I had actually a school psychologist tell me that observing him cut paper was a skill that he needed, and it was perfectly fine if he did not learn how to read past the third grade, which enraged me because third grade is a testing year. So what I was being told is that I needed to wait so my kids can fail in order to get them what they needed. So I decided I'm not going to do that. and I needed to get involved. So I did that. I got on my CEC. I became president. I sat on it for 8 years. I was president for 5 of those years. And ultimately, what lifted the veil for me of what was really going on was, I had all these years of experience in the advocacy space, and then COVID hit. By then, everybody's remote learning. We're all in our homes. But my oldest had completely bottomed out of high school. He hated it. He went to a District 79 transfer high school to get his GED. So he was preparing his portfolio for the state. And I had in front of me my youngest son, who was in the 4th grade, by then was held back twice, and was struggling to read words on the screen and even struggling harder to type the words. And he was frustrated. It was stressing me out because teachers were calling me about why he wasn't producing work. And I'm yelling. I'm trying to sound the alarm that the reason he can't produce work is because he literally cannot read and he cannot type. He cannot write. And I was just being told that I needed to deal with it. So I decided that I needed to make a choice. It was either have another repeat of losing another brown boy in the system, or I needed to save him. So I then had the foresight that there was private schools that existed, and I was going to have to throw a shit ton of money at this. Forgive my French. So I went ahead, got an attorney, got him into a private school. I paid $90,000. I'm on a financial aid scholarship, thank God, but I still have to pay a retainer. I have to pay a deposit fee. And he showed up in 5th grade reading at a 1st grade reading level. So he made 6 years of no progress. And now he's in 9th grade reading at a 7th grade reading level. So while he's not at level, he has made a significant amount of progress where he's closing the gap. But that experience was so exhausting and so traumatic to me and my children that I decided we needed to do something. So we did. So in the next slide, you'll see this is the founders of Literacy Academy Collective. We are 7 women who have collectively 11 dyslexic children. And we all decided that rather than continue to just accept the fact that the system was not going to teach children who are struggling to read how to read, we were going to disrupt the system. So we did. So we advocated for 5 years to open a true public school to support students who struggle to read. And I am very grateful to say that we were able to open the first school in the South Bronx 3 years ago. I'll get into that more later. But that is our why. But the reason I am here is because I wanted to do a presentation regarding reading scores, because one of the biggest issues I am encountering in this work is that the school system is not telling parents that their kids are struggling to read. And what does that mean? If you go to the next slide, every parent has access to something called their NICSA account. That is the New York City Schools account. In the New York City Schools account, there is a dashboard. This is the dashboard. And here it's actually a really great dashboard if you have access to it. So if you have an IEP, you can find your IEPs there. If you have busing, you can actually find information on your company, your grades, your attendance. It's all there. But one of the biggest things that exists right now is New York City Public Schools has done screenings 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. And that is found in the reading and math progress. So they do benchmark assessments for math and also reading. In New York City schools, we have streamlined the process. So grades K to 2 use something called Acadience, and grades 3 to 8 use something called iReady. Every single New York City public school student has been doing these assessments, and they all live in this portal. Now, do parents have access to this portal? I do not know. It is touch and go. You have to go through your parent coordinator. You have to get a creation code, and I do not know why, but this portal changes your password ever so often, which means if you're locked out, you got to do the process all over again. It is not the most user-friendly. However, all data is there. And what does that mean? If you go to the next slide, for grades K to 2 using Acadience, we actually have a system. If you look on the left-hand side, and it's color-coded and it's by percentile. So if your child is in what we call the orange or the red, they are below or well below benchmark. What that means is that your child is at least 2 to 3 years behind. So if you are a child that is sitting in first grade and you have made no progress, that means you have at least a year of no progress. If you're a child in second grade, that means you have 2 years of no progress. And I think it's really important to start elevating this to families because the system is not going to tell you that your child is struggling to read. Unfortunately, you have to arm yourself with the data so you can have those thoughtful conversations. Next slide. This is what the scoring is for iReady, grades 3 to 8. That also lives in the NICSA accounts. And much like the Acadians, if your child is in the red, in the light pink, or even in the yellow, you are looking anywhere between 1 to 3 years behind in your reading. So if you can imagine, if you are a child that is in middle school and you are in the red, that means you're reading at an elementary school level, somewhere or thereabouts, and no one has said anything to you. So I think it's really important that I'm talking about this because I'll get into my what has brought me here and what has been alarming to me. Parents do not know that their kids are struggling to read. So whenever they hear about our school, they're very often, when they're referred to, principals refer them to us, they're very confused. They do not know why, because their teachers aren't saying anything, and certainly the principals aren't. Next slide. So if you are a parent and you see that your child is in the red or in the orange or whatever those shades are, what does that mean? What do you do? Next. I think it's really important that we elevate the why. How do we get here? So in previous years, when my children were in school, we were using an approach called balanced literacy. And what balanced literacy does is that it was unfortunately teaching kids how to guess. So we were teaching kids to look at word patterns, memorize the word patterns, look at the picture. What do you think it's in the picture? What do you think the story is about? And we were actually giving kids clues and skills, quote unquote, on how to do that guessing. My favorite corporate, and in this image here, is Skippy Frog. We were literally teaching kids to skip the tricky word, read to the end, go back and try again. So if you're skipping tricky words, you might be missing the entire context of what you're trying to read. And that is setting up children not only to fail, but not to be successful. Next slide. So what approaches do help struggling readers? This is all, I don't know if you've heard of it, but this is all rooted from what we call the science of reading. The science of reading is 50 years worth of actual science, actual brain scans that scientists have been doing. And they've been mapping out how the brain processes language, because we are all born to hear language. We're oral mammals. This is how we have an oral history. What we have developed over time is written and read, because we're not wired for that. So out of that science, these approaches have come out of it. So it's, I mentioned Ortho Gillingham. Those are two scientists to develop a method based on the science, but it's structured literacy. That it's lots of different names, but they're all talking about the same thing. Next slide. I like to elevate the reading rope because this is really important for families and for people to understand what it takes to read. The English language is a massively difficult and hard language to learn. It is not phonetic, and it's a hodgepodge of different languages, and why does PH make the F sound? I don't know, and it's quite annoying. So we have to teach these skills, and in order to be a fluent reader, you have to have two set of skills. So in the blue side of the rope, this is the language comprehension. You have to know what there, and there means when you spell it 3 different ways. And you have to have that background knowledge. When I talk about a pigeon, you have to know it means a bird. And if I say a bird, you have to know it could be an eagle, a pigeon, or a flamingo. Those are all birds, right? All of that is really important. But you have to couple that with the red side of the rope. That is the word recognition. That is the decoding, the recognition of sounds and words, because that is what actually helps you read the words on the page and store that into your memory bank in your brain. Next slide. So when we're talking about structured literacy, I like to give an example of what I'm referring to because it might sound very overwhelming. So we are often told that the word ED makes the ed sound, like the word printed. But in structured literacy, we're actually explaining to children that actually ED makes 3 sounds. So like in the word limited, that's the ED sound, but also the word cornered, it only makes the D sound. And in the word skipped, that makes the T sound. So what we're teaching children when we're doing this approach is those different rules and what to look for. So if you find the word skipped and you write T at the end, you're not 100% wrong because it does sound like a T, but we can teach skills that say, well, actually, if it sounds like a T, it might sound like an ED instead. And that comes with practice. Next slide. So this is I'm obsessed with the brain. I think the brain is one of the most fascinating organs in our body because it regulates everything that we do. And when it comes to language processing and comprehension, there's 4 different regions of the brain that need to talk to each other. And those 4 different regions all do different things. So there's a part of the brain that when I say the word bird, it gets captured. You hear it. Now you know what you're trying to say. When you know how to spell out the word bird, it actually breaks down the syllables. You actually also visualize a bird. So if I say bird, like I said before, are you thinking about flamingo, an eagle? It could be many different things. And then the back of the brain is our file cabinet. That is where it gets stored. So I can literally nano flash a bunch of words to you really quickly. And if you know them, you know how to read them immediately. Next. I like to share this true and false. I'm not going to go through it right now. I will share the slide with you and you can go through it. But ultimately, what I'm trying to elevate is some of the narratives that have been said about dyslexics and how we process language. You know, we all learn how to read the same way. We do not learn how to read differently. That is what the science has told us. And oftentimes people who struggle how to read are often have a reading disability, and it's not because they're not smart. It's quite the opposite. They tend to be super brilliant, but they just need a different approach. Next slide. When we're dealing with children, I also like to elevate that children are often giving us clues. So when I share the story about my son, when he said he didn't know what it was like his brain wasn't letting him, he was communicating to me in the vocabulary words that he had that there was something going on. But just like adults, there are 2 types of students. There are those who are internalizers, and there's those who show their emotions externally. So children who have deep anxiety around school, that should be a massive red flag. You know, I had a child that was bedwetting in the 3rd grade because he hated going to school because going to school was such a deeply miserable and traumatic experience for him. But there are children who are just angry and rightfully so, right? They're showing up to do something and sit in a classroom with peers and they're all working towards doing something that everyone else can do but them. So that is all often signs that I like to elevate that we need to look at because children are giving us clues all the time. Next slide. I like to highlight what dyslexia is. Dyslexia is a neurological condition in the brain that has a hard time processing sounds and how to decode the sounds to make the words. So I want to elevate that it is not something that is made up. It is not because the person is not smart. It is not because the child is lazy. It is often because literally, like my son told me, my brain is not letting me. And what we have found is when you provide these supports to students, those highways that I showed you earlier, the four different parts of the regions of the brain, they start connecting and they start talking to each other. When you have dyslexia, the those parts of the brains are not connecting, and that's what makes it harder to read. Next slide. Um, at Literacy Academy Collective, we firmly believe that literacy is a fundamental civil right. I like to often elevate that this country has a really ugly history of limiting who can read, and in some states, currently, what they can read. So I like to make it very front and center that this is a fundamental civil right that we all should have access to. Next slide. These are the New York City State's test scores. And while there isn't one subset of students that are, at 100%, what you will see is that Black students, Hispanic students, students with disability, SWD, and MLLs, multi-language learners, are not performing proficient at all. And that is a real problem and something that we need to start elevating with deep concern, because if we want students to be successful, we have to be able to bring these children beyond not just 40%, then we need to bring them to 100. Next slide. There is a real school to prison pipeline, and we say it often, but there was a study done several years ago where they assessed those 19 to 21-year-olds and Rikers. They found nearly 40% of them all had a reading and writing disability. Nationally, they've done these studies across all federal prisons, and over 50% of them cannot read or write. So if you think about what this looks like, if you're a student that's showing up to class and you're showing up and you're trying to do this and you're trying to read and you're trying to write and it's very hard and students are making fun of you and you feel like teachers are not supporting you as you get older, we say from K to 2, you're learning how to read, but from 3 and beyond, you need to read to learn. And if you cannot read, you're not learning. And if you're not learning, you disengage. And if you disengage, you're outside. And like my mom says, nothing good happens outside. So what we're trying to do is really start breaking these pipelines so we can bring out the brilliance in people. Next. So why I'm here is because I want to bring awareness to the literacy as it exists in the state and the city, but also about the work that we're doing. So as I alluded to before, I am one of the co-founders of Literacy Academy Collective. My official title is I'm the Director of Community and Family Engagement. I also handle admissions for all our LAC schools. 3 years ago, after 5 years of advocacy, we opened South Bronx Literacy Academy. That was the nation's first in-district public school in the country to support students who have dyslexia or other language-based learning disabilities. We start in the 2nd grade and we go up to the 8th grade. We were able to do history once again. We opened our 2nd site in Central Brooklyn this year. And the goal of Literacy Academy Collective is to continue to open up more schools. We would love to have a school in every borough. We're eyeing Queens next. But let's make this very clear. Other states are paying attention to what we're doing, and a lot of them are asking us questions. So, more to come on that. Next. So what makes our school very different is the design. One of our partners is a private school, the Windward School. And they actually have been monumental and amazing, supportive in training our teachers. That's been one of the missing keys to this, is we quickly realized that there was a lot of reasons why these things were kind of collapsing on each other, and one of them was actually the teacher training. Teachers are leaving higher ed institutions with master's degrees that are not giving them the training to teach how to read. So actually, because of this work, we have been New York State facilitators for the last 3 years with New York State Ed and the regents and some higher ed institutions and the governor's office to look at and revamp the way we're training teachers, and they're going to revamp the state licensure exam to align it to those policies. So we're excited about that. But the design of the school is we have a daily 90-minute reading and writing block. So what that means is that from 9 to 10:30, our students get up. We call it the walk to read. They get up, they leave their classrooms, and they walk to their reading group and writing group. So all our students are assessed. Once they're assessed, they're put into small groups, leveled groups, so groupings, according to their ability. And groupings can be anywhere between 6 to 7 students with one teacher, sometimes 4, depends on the group, no more than 7, with one teacher. And there is skills to mastery. So once those children have, or a child, because you don't have to stay in your groups. Once a child has met the criteria of that group, they are assessed. They're assessed daily because the teacher sees the daily progress. But once they meet those skills, they then move on to the next group and to the next group and beyond. So the goal is that we meet them where they are and we push them to where they can be to the next level. It's 90 minutes, it's 45 minutes of reading, 45 minutes of writing, because we're teaching kids how to write a really great sentence and not just whatever. We also align the writing to the science. There's lots of science on how to make, how the brain needs to actually practice what they're seeing and hearing and what you're speaking into actual written. So we are not a school that puts kids in front of laptops. We want them actually putting, hand to pencil on paper. We also do the same assessments for math. We all mandated to do the same math curricula than everybody else, and we find it a little frustrating. Our kids are frustrated by it, so we've actually done a similar foundational block for our students as well to help them with those skills. And we're also lots of social emotional help. So what we find is that students who show up to us have some deep academic trauma because school is hard, and also parents are also just as frustrated. So we are teaching kids how to use their words. And if they're having a hard day, just like adults have a hard day, what can they do? What can they say? So, we want those kids to be able to use their words and say, if I need a 5-minute break, can I go and, be in a calming room, or can I speak to someone, or can I just take a walk to the water fountain? So I think all of this work has been really instrumental. Next slide. Oh, okay. So one of the things that we often say is we need to, in order to teach parents what to do, you need to arm them with questions. So that is what my job is. I created these basic questions, and the goal is to really get parents armed with information so they can advocate for their children and they can, get them the support they need, because oftentimes, like I mentioned at the top of the meeting, schools are not telling parents that their kids can read. Unfortunately, when we get referrals from well-meaning principals, when I'm having conversations about why their child was recommended to us, there could be a 4th grader reading at a 1st grade reading level, and they're like, how come my school never told me that? Why am I just hearing this from you? So I know why the system is not doing it. They just don't want to deal with the headaches and all of that stuff. But my goal is I don't care about the headaches. I'm here for advocacy and for awareness because the more you know, the more you're armed with information. Next slide. So this is my information. My goal is two things to show up here is A, to bring awareness about literacy and how to, bring this as forefront when you get in front of parents, but also to be a partner to you all. My goal is to really start building relationships in the in the boroughs that we do serve. So in South Bronx, we're at 750 Concourse Village West. We are a citywide school, but we have borough preferences. So for South Bronx, we are borough preference for the Bronx. And we also have a busing variance. So if the family has an IEP, we can add busing to their IEP. But if they are a gen ed student, we can just add a bus stop if they live within 5 miles of the school address. So the goal is really to say, thank you for giving me time to present to you all. Hopefully you learned something new today. And also to be able to say if there's ever an opportunity, tabling opportunity, I know street fairs is going to be abundant this summer because everybody's inside and everybody wants to be outside. I would love if you can all keep me in mind because where I get my soul filled is being in community with people in the community. And I would definitely love to continue having these conversations and these partnerships with y'all. So I will say nothing, and if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you so much, Naomi. That was a phenomenal presentation. I'm actually a first grade teacher, so all of this stuff is super relatable. Like my job is to teach people how to read, and yeah, I've learned a lot. I think one of my favorite feelings, real quick, in school is when a kid reads a passage for like the first time. That is a feeling like no other. So yeah, thanks for sharing. I do have a few questions, but I'll open it to the people. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Naomi? You can raise a hand or you could just unmute and speak.
Hi, Naomi. Thank you for a great presentation. I love that took the initiative to take care of all your kids, and now you're creating this entire community around it, and people have access to the same resources. My question is, with the science of reading that's taking place, I know they found initial success. Are you finding the same result and like the same potential at your school?
Yeah, I will tell you, um, there is something to be said when you have a school full of kids who are just like them. Like no one is making fun of you because you're a slow reader or you don't know words or you having a hard time sounding words out. Like it's just like a different vibe in the school. I mean, kids are kids, they're picking on each other for other reasons, but like no one's making fun of each other because of that. That's one. Two, we have a couple of sets of different types of students. We have kids who are not dyslexic. You do not need to be dyslexic to come to us. You don't even need an IEP to come to us. We're ICT model. You just need to be a kid that's in the red or in the orange. You just need to be a struggling reader to come to us. And we do some assessments to confirm that, but the bar is very low and that's intentional. Because in order to get to these private schools, you need to pay for a neuropsych that costs about $10,000. You need to hire an attorney that can cost you $5,000 to $10,000. And you need to come up with a plan how to pay your $90,000 a year tuition every year. And you got to sue DOE every single year. So the bar that we set is much lower because that's out of reach for the vast majority of people. And quite frankly, it was out of reach for me for definitely the last 3 kids I had. So we're finding is there's a subset of kids that are not dyslexic. They just had bad instruction. And they just have flown. We are a 2 to 8 school, that's the model. So in the South Bronx, we have grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is the first year next year we're gonna have 6th graders. But actually we have a subset of kids who showed up to us in 2nd grade and are at reading level already. So they're already at 5th grade reading level, and they're gonna leave us to go to a district middle school. And that's what we want. We want kids to be at level, but we also have transparent conversations. Because if your kid's reading at level, they don't need us anymore. And parents are like, no, but I like it here. I love it. And yes, we want that. But also we have a conversation like this is a really intensive model. We say we're a tier 3 school, but everyone gets it. It's a tier 1 for everybody, you know? So it's not going to work for everybody. So we just want to make sure that every single child that's coming to us is going to thrive. And once they're thriving, they should go to where they need to go. Um, but there's also a subset of kids who are undiagnosed dyslexics for sure. And they are also moving. So the rate of improvement varies student to student, depending on what the circumstances are, but all the kids, every single one of our kids have made improvements. The average rate of improvement is every child's making at the end of 1 year, they're making up to 2 years worth of growth. So they're doubling their growth. Now, when you show up to us in 4th grade and you're reading at a first grade reading level, 2 years worth of growth means you went from first grade to merging third, but nonetheless, or second, but nonetheless, you're making growth, and that's the goal.
Does
Thank
anyone
you so
have,
much.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. I'll ask my question real quick. I have a question about a referral process. You mentioned people getting referred. Who does the referring? Is it like public school principals that refer to your program, or how does that work?
This is probably the hardest lift of a new school in general. It's just the awareness of the
Mm.
school. The biggest issue is that if everyone was over enrolled, I think we would be busting at the seams at referrals. But because everyone is struggling with enrollment, not every school wants to send a child over to us. So that's been difficult, honestly, because schools rather keep a child that's made no progress in their classroom for the sake of numbers. And that's been, it's a hard reality that I struggle with because it keeps me up at night knowing that there's tons of kids that need us and they don't know that we exist. And also, there has been instances I often say in order for us to get one student, we have to get at least 10 to 15 families referred because not all of them are going to take us, right? So we're a 2 to 8 school. So if you got a kindergartner and you got a 3rd grader, they probably want to keep them in the same building. We don't have a 1st grade or a K. So that's going to eliminate when there's siblings like that, that eliminates some of the interest for us. But also the awareness piece, I think, is the hardest one for parents to understand and process because they just don't know what the school is or what it does and why they need it and why they're getting referred. So it often puts me in a really peculiar and often uncomfortable conversation when they telling me, well, my child can read and I see the readings, I see the assessment and your child's reading a 17 percentile and they're in the 3rd grade. So, I try to have a delicate conversation around that because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus because that's not what I'm here for either. But um, ideally, what I often do is I just try to be in front of families and just tell them what we do. And if there's interest, on our website, there's an admissions tab that leads to both school sites and it leads to a special interest form that goes to me. There's a phone number there, there's an email there. So it all goes to me. I talk to every single parent that has ever showed up to our school. Um, and I support them along the way.
Thank you so much, Naomi and Justin too. Yeah, I hope that we can get this presentation out there so a lot of parents can see it and make decisions for themselves. Yeah, thank you so much. If no one else has a question, we will move on to the next presentation by Alexander, right? From is it Fifth's Neighborhood Workforce Development Program?
Yes, it's called FIPS.
Say it again.
FIPS.
FIPS. I see. This is the
Yeah.
phonics instruction we're talking about. Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you. FIPS. Okay. Do you need to share a slide or are you just gonna?
Yeah, I have two things that I would like to share.
Okay.
Let me try doing that. Seem to be having some issues. It's fine. I can actually share the information and flyers with you guys after the meeting. Um, so a little bit about me. My name is Alexander. I'm representing my company called Dips Neighborhoods. We're a nonprofit in the Bronx located on East Tremont Avenue. The main goal of our company is, well, I represent our sectoral team specifically. The goal of my team is to provide workshop training and certification programs to people within our community so that they could advance either their current job or leave their current job and get a better job. So the two programs that I'm going to talk to you about today is our healthcare training, train and earn program, and our career network building services program. I'm going to start with the healthcare one first. Our healthcare program is 20 weeks long. We're currently in recruitment for the program, so if anyone wants to refer anybody that's interested, please feel free to email me with the name, phone number, and email. And I'm gonna try my best to keep track of said referral and where they are in our recruitment process. The main goal of our healthcare program across the 20 weeks of the program is for participants to gain certifications as a PCT, number one, CNA, phlebotomy, EKG, and the BLS certification, as well as get internship experience at the same time. We also, at the end of programming, we also provide job placement and job retention. Because as we all know, keeping a job is very different than getting a job. Uh, Something else to note is that we also provide transportation for all of our participants. We run this program twice a year. This being the second time we run our program. The next cohort is going to be in January, where we serve 30 participants per cohort. And our program is free, and participants do get paid for going through the program. Any questions so far? Please feel free to interrupt the questions. I'm more than welcome to answer them.
Real quick, is the program free?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. And so that was our healthcare training program in a nutshell. Just to explain our recruitment process overall, is that they usually come in for an information session. Afterwards, they come in for a basic skills assessment. Afterwards, after they pass their basic skills assessment, they then come in for an intake interview. Once they pass said interview, they will get invited to our assessment week, which is pretty much just like a group interview. So we're seeing how a participant interacts with other participants and other staff, including our partner staff, which are which are Hostos Community College and also our hospitals, which would be New Presbyterian and Montefiore. After that, they will get notification that they're officially enrolled, where they would follow 3 weeks of professional development. So that's going to be how to be working in a professional setting, how to be working in a hospital setting, the type of work they're going to be doing, or what they can expect, any issues that may arise, or scenarios that may happen while working inside a hospital. as well as formulating and tailoring a resume, formulating and tailoring cover letter, as well as learning how to deal with diverse patients and actually being able to talk to hospital staff as well during these professional development weeks. Following that, it's going to be where we actually split up the cohort in two different groups. Okay. Yes, the ages of these participants must be between the ages of 18 to 24. They must be New York City residents, and they must have a GED or high school diploma in order to qualify for our program. So going back to how we split up the cohorts, a group may go first for their internship experience, or they may go first for their certification and training. Once that part of the program is done, we're going to switch. So just to keep things simple, group one, let's say group one is doing the internship first. After the middle of the program, we're going to switch. So group one is going to be doing the certification training. After all that is good and done, the participants will be able to take their PCT exam, which is a state exam. And then once they pass that, we will help with job placement and job retention. That's a more in-depth overview of our healthcare training program. Any questions so far? Sorry for the wind.
No worries. You said you had two sessions. If you could, when are those sessions happening?
Yeah, so our program starts July 13th. So what I mean by can I clarify what do you mean by two sessions? Are you talking about the two different groups, or are you talking about the second cohort that we run?
I think more so second quarter. I'm thinking more about timing. You
Okay.
said, yeah.
Yeah. So currently running for our second cohort of the year. That is going to start July 13th. And it's gonna be for 20 weeks. They do get holidays off. So they're going to end the second week of December. The other cohort of our healthcare program is going to be starting next year in January. Was I able to answer your question? Good. I'm going to be moving on towards our building services program. So, our building services program, much like our healthcare program, has an internship and certification built inside the program, as well as professional development. The main differences is one, the topic. So instead of healthcare, you may be getting certified as a porter, and learn how to do building maintenance. The second biggest difference is that you just need to be 18 to qualify. So we have current participants that are 50, 60 years old and enrolled. So there is no age limit. The other big difference is that this program, instead of being 20 weeks long, is 11 weeks long. So again, after our recruitment process, which is attending an information session, a basic skills assessment, which would be a math test, following an interview, there is going to be followed by an assessment week, internship, professional development, right before they go on into their internship, where afterwards we place them in a job. The cool thing, my favorite part about our building services program is that we actually do it all in-house. So the only real partner external partner that we're working with is Hostos Community College. The way we're able to do that is because of our parent company, 7's Houses, or should I say the other side of our company, 7's Houses. We're able to place them at one of our real estate or housing developments where they're able to work, and we accommodate as best as we can. We currently have a participant that lives all the way out in Brooklyn, and we actually have a site in Brooklyn where he's able to commute to. And you guys should have seen the face, his smile and his face when he realized that he didn't have to come all the way down to the Bronx. So the certifications that they're going to be getting is a total of 9. You're going to be getting your OSHA 30, your SST, fall prevention, your road flagger, lead, mold, asbestos awareness, drug and alcohol prevention, um, and I believe that is a total of 9, if I am not mistaken. Um, And that is all we've done in our certification training program. They are also taking classes on plumbing, carpentry, and electrical. Although they are not getting a certification in them, they do learn how to deal with that. Just because, when you have a leaky sink, you have to have some plumbing experience. You might see the leak might mess up your floors. You gotta have carpentry experience, right? So they all kind of deal and weave into each other when you're trying to learn and train people for this program. And afterwards, after the program ends, once again, we help with job development, job placement, and job retention. And once again, like our healthcare program, it is free, and participants do get paid to go through this program. Any questions? I'm not seeing any. Um, So those are the 2 programs that I wanted to come and hear and talk about. Thank you for the opportunity. This is my first meeting at a community board, so I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And Nixon 6.
Let's go. Let's go. Big game tonight. Thank you so much, Alexander, for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I hope that we get this video out there so people can see it. It seems like a great program. If no one else has a question, we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. So I'll give us maybe a few seconds to if anybody has something to say. All right, cool. This will be our final meeting of this session of this year. Our next meeting will be September 2nd of 2026. So I hope you all have phenomenal summers. Thank you, Naomi, Justin, Alexander, for taking the time. I think y'all made great cases for your program, and I hope for all your success. And I learned a lot personally too. So thanks for that. All right, I'll go ahead and end the meeting. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Adeline, do you second?
I second it.
Great, awesome. Thank you all.
Khadija
Take
second it.
care. Awesome.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.